Sam checks his banking app at 11:47 p.m. in a parking lot outside a 24-hour pharmacy. The screen brightness cuts through the dark interior of his car. Balance? $312.47. Rent is due in 4 days. He doesn't sigh. He doesn't curse. He just closes the app and sits there, listening to the engine cool down, tick by tick, like the car is the only thing in his life still keeping a steady rhythm. He is 25 years old. Here's the number nobody tells you about money. It isn't the amount that decides how you're treated. It's the velocity. Two people can have the exact same $312 in their account on a Tuesday night, and the system will read them in completely different ways depending on where they're headed next. Sam, at $312, is read as risk, a flag, a maybe overdraft, a name in a spreadsheet some algorithm is quietly watching.
6 years earlier, Sam was 19 with $4 in his account, eating gas station eggs because they were the only protein he could afford that didn't need a stove. He remembers a moment with brutal clarity, standing in line behind a man buying lottery tickets with cash he clearly didn't have to spare, and the cashier joking with him, warm, easy, like the two of them were old friends sharing a private joke about luck. Sam paid for his eggs in exact change, counted out coin by coin, and got nothing. No joke, no warmth, just a transaction processed and forgotten. The emotional cost of being poor isn't only the hunger, it's the invisibility. Nobody performs friendliness for a person who looks like they have nothing to offer back.
3 years after that, at 22, Sam had $40,000 in a savings account after selling a small piece of code he built on weekends. He remembers walking into a bank branch to ask about a business loan, and the teller's whole posture changed the second the balance loaded on her screen. Suddenly, he was Mr. Reyes. Suddenly there was coffee. Suddenly there was a private office in the back instead of a line. The money hadn't done anything yet. It hadn't built anything, hired anyone, solved any problem. It had just sat there, in a number, and the entire room had reorganized itself around it. That's the secret under all of this. The system doesn't respond to wealth. It responds to the appearance of inevitability. It treats you like your future is already decided, and then dares you to prove it wrong. What the bank didn't know, what nobody in that warm back office could have guessed from a balance on a screen, was that Sam wasn't sitting on the money. He was about to bet it. He poured almost all of it into a first version of a product that never found its footing, a tool nobody asked for, built on a hunch instead of a need. Within a year, the savings were gone, eaten by server bills and a developer he'd hired too early. He covered the gap for a while on a card, then on a second card, until the math stopped working. That's how $40,000 becomes $312.47 in 3 years. Not one bad night, but 100 small decisions made by a person who'd never been taught what to do with a number that big, because nobody hands you that manual. He'd had the appearance of inevitability for exactly long enough to believe it, and then watched it evaporate one invoice at a time. So at 25, in a parking lot outside a pharmacy, $312.47 isn't a starting point. It's a return trip. He's been somewhere and come back. And the worst part of coming back is that nobody around him can see the round trip. They only see the man with $312, same as they'd only seen the man with $40,000. Never both at once. A year later, 26, $0. Actually zero. The kind of zero where the app shows a flat line and a polite suggestion to explore overdraft protection. He just paid off a debt collector who'd been calling his mother's house, not his own, because that's the address they had on file from the failed business, back when he still had a registered office and a dream with a mailing address. He felt lighter and emptier in the same breath. Zero isn't always a crisis. Sometimes it's a finish line nobody throws confetti for. 5 years after that, at 31, $1.2 million after a second piece of software. Quieter, smaller, built this time on a need instead of a hunch, got acquired. He didn't buy a car. He didn't move. He sat in the same one-bedroom apartment with the new number on his screen and felt something close to suspicion, like the figure might evaporate if he looked at it wrong, the way the last one had. The emotional cost of sudden money is rarely euphoria. It's vertigo. You spend years building a relationship with scarcity, and then scarcity just leaves the room without saying goodbye, and you don't know who you are in the silence it left behind. A cousin found out about the acquisition before Sam told anyone. Word travels strange in families. At a cookout that summer, an uncle pulled him aside, smiling too wide, and asked if Sam could help out with a truck payment. Just temporarily, just this once. The uncle wasn't cruel. He'd simply done the same math everyone does the second they hear a big number. $1 million equals bottomless. He pictured Sam's account like a lake, when really it was closer to a single pipe with a slow, careful valve Sam had spent a decade and one collapsed business learning not to touch impulsively. The uncle saw a rich man. Sam still felt somewhere under his ribs like the kid counting coins for gas station eggs, or the man checking $312.47 in a dark car. Nobody in that backyard could see any of those versions of him at once. They only ever see the number, never the nervous system underneath it. Sam could have handed him the money right there. It would have cost him nothing measurable, less than a rounding error against the new total. He thought about it for exactly as long as it took to chew a bite of corn on the cob. Then he said he'd think about it and changed the subject to the uncle's dog. He didn't say no. He didn't say yes. He understood something most people don't learn until money has burned them at least once. The first request is never really about the truck. It's a test of whether the valve is now permanently open. Close it gently once, and you protect every relationship in that backyard for years. Open it once, and you become a line item in everyone's plans forever. $10 million came 4 years later, at 35, after a third company. The one nobody expected to work, least of all Sam. At that level, the system doesn't even bother performing warmth anymore. It performs deference. A private banker calls him by his first name within the first sentence of every conversation. Risk teams that once flagged his $312 nights now build entire departments around protecting his decisions from his own impulses. The architecture of finance, which spent years treating him like a threat to be monitored, now treats him like an asset to be insulated. Nothing about Sam changed. The unit decimal point did. He still drives the same car, not out of some performed modesty for a camera that isn't there. There's no camera, no script, no audience watching this particular Tuesday. He drives it because trading it in would mean admitting that the version of him who chose it doesn't exist anymore. And some part of him isn't ready to file that report yet.
A former coworker reached out last spring. Congratulatory, fishing without quite admitting it was fishing. Asked, half joking, if Sam could spot him for a security deposit on a new apartment. Sam read the message twice. He had the money sitting in 3 different accounts doing absolutely nothing useful at that exact moment. He typed out a yes. Then he deleted it. Not because he didn't care, because he understood by now that money offered too easily stops being help and starts being a quiet form of control over the relationship, over the gratitude, over who owes who and for how long. He sent back a number for a local resource that helps with deposits instead, and left it there. Tonight, the account sits comfortably past 8 figures. And Sam is in the same kind of parking lot he sat in at 25, just a nicer part of town. He checks the app out of habit more than need. The number loads. He doesn't smile. He doesn't feel anything close to triumph. He just closes the app, the same way he always has, and sits there a while longer, listening to nothing in particular. Because somewhere between $4 and 8 figures, he learned that the number was never really the thing he was chasing.